I grew up on a farm in Tennessee. One of the things that we raised on that farm was tobacco. Tobacco was part of our lives for many, many years. My entire life, my dad smoked tobacco. He started when he was a kid. He was issued cigarettes in the military, and many years later that contributed to the cancer that eventually took his life. So I have this really conflicted relationship with tobacco. It's part of my story, and yet it's a part of my story that I wish I could do something with. And that's all of us, right? There's parts of our stories that we're proud of and other parts that we wish we could change, but we can't. But what if you could take those parts and redeem them? Do something new with them. Make something better out of them. And so I was out in the tobacco barn recently, and I've been thinking about these tobacco sticks. And you stand in that barn, and the light comes through all the sides. There's gaps everywhere so that air could pass through it. Because what they would do is you go in the tobacco field, you'd cut down the tobacco plant, you'd put a stick like this, you put a little spike on the end of it, and you spur the plant onto that. And then when you have a whole row of these, they take them into the barn and they hang them up on these beams so the plants will dry out. And then after they're dry, they would take it down, pull the leaves, grate it, bundle it, and sell it. There's all kinds of these sticks laying in that barn. As I began to dig through them, I realized that some of it was beautiful old wood. All of them are at least 20 or 30 years old. That's the last time they bought any. But many of them are a lot older than that, maybe 100 years, maybe more. They were there since they built the barn, probably. Many of them are old enough, like this piece of, I don't know if this is pine or fir, but it's been hand split. Instead of running it through a saw, they actually took it and used an axe or a hatchet or a froe, if they were fancy, and split it, and it's old. And there's all kinds of cool species out there. There is some pine and fir, but mostly it's oak and poplar and walnut and cherry, hickory, which is my favorite, and I think I've even found some locust. And I wrestled with what could I do with this now that's part of our story that makes it this beautiful part going into the future. How can we redeem some of that wood and reuse it? It's all these little strips. It's not good for a lot of things. But you think, what could you make? And you begin looking on the internet and realize people are making stuff with this. And I thought, well, what if you went a little further? If you ran it through a joiner or a plane, you cleaned up part of it, what kind of things could you put together? And that's where I came up with this idea of these little crosses that I've been working on. This one I'm excited about is actually a piece of cherry. It represents for me the redeeming of those tobacco sticks, the taking of something old and making something new, because that's a theme in my life. I believe that's what God offers to all of us, that he can take what was old and damaged and broken and maybe even full of regret or shame and make something new with it, to give it new life, to make it beautiful, to make it redemptive, useful for something good. My name is Steve, and that's why I started Redemptive Woodworks.